Okay. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but you know what really winds me up is the Pantone color of the year. I'm just like, some random person somewhere has picked some random color, and then everyone's doing posts being like, oh, this is the color of the year. I can't wait to use it in my projects. And I'm like, what?
Welcome back to Able Heads, the space where we dive into creative minds and unpack how things actually get done. Today, I have a really special guest who I've been friends with for a while and done loads of coffee chats with. Just an overall good vibe. Liz Mosley. If you don't know Liz yet, she's a designer, a branding expert, a podcast host herself, and an all around thoughtful creative. She helps small businesses feel confident in how they show up online. She's done this really cool rejection challenge, which is just fearlessly pitching to people. And she creates some of the best GIFs out there. GIFs or GIFs? Let's find that later. But we're talking all things branding, the rejection challenge, community, and how to show up online in your personal brand. Let's dive into it.
Well, I like to describe what I do under a big umbrella, and the umbrella is helping small businesses with their branding and marketing. So I do that in a few different ways. So the main way is that I'm a graphic designer, so I design visual identities for small businesses, so branding design for them. Another way is that I have my own podcast called Building Your Brand. So I guess that's sort of like a free way that they can consume content and get help and advice. I also run some courses. I also do some public speaking. I also, what else do I do? I'm sure there's something else. Oh, like do Adobe Live, create content. So all of those things fall under the umbrella of helping small businesses with their branding and marketing.
That's a lot of aspects and a lot of things under the umbrella. How did you get started doing all of that? What was the first thing that you did out of all of those?
Branding design was the first thing.
Hmm.
So, well, how far back do you want me to go?
Way back.
Okay.
Well,
So when I was at school, I always wanted to do creative things. Interestingly, I thought I was going to be a photographer. So I spent a lot of time doing photography at school. And then in the UK, I don't know if they do them anymore, but they did this thing called a foundation course where
hmm.
you basically get to go for 1 year and just try all different creative disciplines. So like ceramics, textiles, printmaking, everything. And that is where I guess I discovered graphic design. I think I knew what it was before, but I just like hadn't really considered it as a career option.
Yeah.
But what I loved about it is I really hate feeling like I have to niche down or like I have to pick something. And with graphic design, I feel like even if I wasn't doing, say, like the photography or the illustration, it felt like it was bringing it all together. And so it felt like I didn't have to narrow down too far. So I went into graphic design, then went on and studied that further for like 3 years. And I've basically been working as a graphic designer ever since. I started off weirdly, when I left university, I had no aspirations to work for myself. Like a lot of my other students, they were like, oh, we want to set up our own businesses, we want to have studios, all this sort of stuff. And that was never my aspiration. So I went and worked for other people in house and at an agency. And then I had kids. And that was basically the catalyst for me starting my own business. So I had started to do it a bit on the side at my in house design role, just because like when I actually loved working in house, but you do start to get a bit bored working basically with the same brand the whole time. So I just wanted to design stuff for myself for fun. So I set up like a stationery business designing like cards and prints and enamel pins and things like that. And I would like go to all these different markets around London. And that's where I actually fell in love with, like, I got to know other small businesses. So that's where I kind of fell in love with that as my client demographic, because I spent all this time at markets, like chatting to them, like I guess getting an insight into what the struggles were, what the sort of like unique aspects of running. I say small business, technically it would be considered a micro business.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then when I had kids, I decided not to go back to my job and to try and grow my business. And I was getting more people, kind of like friends of colleagues or friends of friends, asking me to do freelance work for them. And that started to build up. And then after I had my second child, I decided that I basically needed to pick either to do the stationery shop or the service, like doing design for other people route, because I felt like I couldn't really, like with limited time, I couldn't get them where I wanted them to be. They were almost like separate businesses, and I just had to pick one to go all in on. So I basically
Yeah.
closed the stationery shop, went all in on the like design, and sort of decided that I would specialize in branding design for small businesses, because that was the sort of group of people that I'd kind of fallen in love with. So yeah.
That's so interesting. I am so fascinated by niching down and generalist and specialist, because I think I get that question a lot. I recently did portfolio reviews for an event here in the city, and there were next gen creators, and they asked me this question: should I be a generalist or should I be a specialist? And that's so interesting that you mentioned about niching down the people or the clients you work with, but not necessarily the kind of design you're making. So
Yeah.
while you're doing like photography and maybe illustration and like just bringing that all together, so the process still kind of seems like
It's
generalist.
broad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're doing everything. We're creating posters, you're creating like a sticker chart, and you're still kind of like bringing in merch and stuff into your process and your online business and presence, which honestly I admire. I've been thinking of making my own merch shop for the longest time, but I've been procrastinating so hard.
It is. I don't think I could go. So yeah, you mentioned the sticker chart, which I made recently. So that was the
Yeah.
first time that I've had a product, like a physical product, for a really long time. And
Yeah.
I have had forgotten like about the whole having to go to the post office all the time and post them, and get all the packaging, and there
Yeah.
is like a lot of extra work that goes with having products. So I don't think I would. I think I'll just do this as a like a one off, and that'll be it. Like I don't think I'm going to go into like a full merch line again, because it's so much work.
I was over here thinking you're gonna expand to other countries and not just UK.
No,
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question. Would you do you ever see yourself going back to designing merchandise for yourself?
I don't think so. And I think the reason being is that I am enjoying what I'm doing so much.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't really feel the need to expand into that. Like I do enjoy every now and then, like designing just something for fun for me,
Yeah.
or like maybe a limited run of like these sticker charts or whatever. But no, I don't think I'll go back. I mean, never say never, but I don't think that's not on my plan list at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. The plan list only has YouTube.
Yeah, that's
Which
all that's
which
on it. Which isn't going very well, to be honest. So
No, I mean, I know you do a lot of live streams lately too, every week, which is, I think, showing up online consistently is what matters. And
yeah.
I think I need to learn from your scheduling things, where I always like I consistently see your reels all over my feed, and I'm like, how does she have the time? Where
I
where
honestly
is the
don't know.
time?
I don't know. I'm trying to get better at repurposing, to be honest. So, like
Yeah.
reposting previous content. I recently did a thing. I did like a sponsored post with Riverside, and I set
Mhm.
myself a challenge to make as many reels and as much content as I could from my existing podcast recordings. So
Mhm.
not like the kind of me interviewing people. I just tried to snip out bits where just I'm talking and turn
Yeah.
those into reels. So yeah, I'm
Mhm.
trying. It's hard. I mean, yeah, it's always a juggle, and I feel like sometimes I feel really on top of it, and then other times I feel like I'm scrabbling around trying to get something done. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that helps is that I do genuinely enjoy making content. So like that feels like another creative outlet for me. Like learning how to edit videos and create content, like that is another, I guess, way where I'm being a generalist, because I'm like adding other skills to my sort of broad skill set, I guess. Yeah, because I just like doing all the things.
Yeah. I
I want
guess
to do it
for
all.
yeah. I mean, I guess it's more of like, how do you slow your brain down? Some people do that with like journal sketching or like going out for a walk. And when I was learning how to animate and do motion design, I set myself the 36 days of type challenge. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn a new tool and I'm going to give myself the challenge of doing it. And by the sounds of it, it seems like you're doing something similar where, yes, it's a creative outlet, but it's also your brand voice where you're showing up authentically online. So you don't have to pretend, and it's not like it's a necessity to make content. You like doing it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I think
yeah,
so. And I think like that is where authenticity is really helpful, because I
yeah,
think if you're trying to like, well, this is what I love about personal branding, right? If you do it authentically, then it is actually quite easy because you just have to show up as yourself. Like,
yeah,
obviously, a slightly curated version of yourself, in the sense that I don't share everything. So, like, there's
yeah.
some things I choose not to share, but the bits that I do share are authentically me. Like, one day when we meet in person, Anika, and it'll be amazing. I will, hopefully I will be exactly like you've seen on a
Yeah,
screen. But
yeah,
but yeah, I think if you get into the position of like trying to pretend to be something that you're not, or trying to construct this kind of artificial personal brand, it's just exhausting and really hard to keep up. And to be honest, with like kids, me and my husband are both self-employed, like there's just so much going on. I haven't got the energy for that.
yeah, yeah. Like, there's no time for that.
No, so
Um,
I'm just showing up, mess, chaotic, all of it. It's just, here it is.
I mean, I guess that's what it is about being online too, especially in the world of 2025 and in the world of AI. I think it's more the human element
Mm,
that's necessary. And I think the need of the hour too, where I want to learn more about the person I'm talking to rather than what they're doing.
yeah.
Um, I don't care how you get to the end process, but that you get there. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, so I love that you said that when you had kids, that was the time you decided that I have to pick whether to run a business or continue my agency job, which is actually so fascinating because I would think having kids would be like, there's one already a big element in my life right now. Should I introduce another one? And you picked that choice. So what made you do that?
well, at the time we lived in London, and basically I worked out that if I paid for childcare to go back to my job, I would be bringing home about £100 a month, which is just like, it's just not even worth it. It's not
Yeah,
even worth it to do a full-time job. And
yeah,
also, I would have not seen my kids from like 8 until 6, 8 in the morning till 6 p.m. with the commute. And that just was never really what I wanted. I mean, like, I think everyone has to work out what feels right for them. When they were really little, I wanted to spend as much time with them as possible, because I knew that that would be like a limited period. So actually, like, it was really hard because the growth of my business at the start was so slow, and I was watching everybody else around me like rocket ahead. And
yeah.
so, but I just had to keep reminding myself, like, this was the choice. This is the choice that I have made, and it is what I want. Even though I'm like a bit jealous of other people doing other things, this is what I want to do. And I'm really glad that I did that. And I spent, like, I got to spend loads of time with them. And even now, like, running my own business, I have the flexibility. I can go and pick them up from school, I can make them dinner, I can work, catch up a bit in the evening if I want to. Like, I have that flexibility.
Yeah.
And weirdly, I don't know if this is the same for other people, but I feel like I was a bit, maybe like coasting a bit in my business when I worked
Mm,
for other people.
mm.
Sorry, coasting in my career when I worked for other people. And
Yeah.
I feel like starting my own business like just lit a fire under me, and I'm more ambitious than I've ever been. And I think, when it's your thing,
You care more.
you care way more. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and I did care about my jobs, and I think I worked really hard and I did a good job. But there is something really special about it being your thing.
I 100% agree. I feel the same way because I feel like when you're doing everything by yourself, you see what's at stake and you see what it can grow into. And I
Mm.
think that's what kind of drives
Yes,
everything
it's
else.
that potential, isn't it? And that
Yeah.
is one of the things that I think some people, like, the other day I had this real realization that running your own business really isn't for everybody. Like, there are
Yeah.
some people who genuinely don't want the stresses that come with it, and I totally get that and respect that. But I think for me, there's something about the excitement of like not knowing what opportunity might be just around the corner, like not knowing who's been silently watching what you do on social media and is going to drop you an email, or like there's just, I just think it's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah. That's so. I agree with that 100%. So, what is it like working in the UK and versus working in North America? Because I know you have clients internationally too. So, how is it different? What are the key things that just stand out to you?
I guess most of my clients are in the UK. I've done a few with clients, yeah, in South America and North America.
Mm,
I think, I guess it's really hard to pinpoint. There's like lots of very sort of subtle cultural things
yeah,
that are kind of hard to explain. So I think just the way like people in the UK navigate business is quite different from in the US. I mean, it's all the classic stereotypes, like we're not as good at we're not as good at bragging about ourselves and promoting ourselves. Like we're
yeah,
all a bit self-depreciating, and it is interesting to see how those traits translate across to people's businesses.
yeah,
And actually, like one of the things that's been really nice for me is getting to know designers all over the world and becoming friends with them has actually like helped me to try and sort of break out of that a bit more.
mm,
Like I've got friends like who are designers who are out there like, hustling and asking for what they want and pitching to big brands and, like putting themselves in front of people. And actually I find that really hard, but like challenging. But then seeing them do it, I'm like, yeah, it shows me what's possible, I think. And so I love that, being exposed to, like different ways of doing things and then being able to be like, oh, I'm going to try that too.
yeah. Speaking of trying that, I know you're already trying that because the
Yeah.
rejection challenge.
Yes.
That's pretty exciting. I think at one point, we'll talk more about rejection challenge and how you got started. But I think just to give the listeners an overview, I actually got inspired by a rejection challenge too, where I started pitching to these clients who I never thought would work with me. And I was like, you know what, let me put my foot down and show them what I have,
Yeah.
and what I bring to the table. Because if they don't know who I am and if they don't know who exists out there in the world, they would never think about hiring me.
Yeah.
And the worst that could happen is them saying no, which they
Yeah.
already are if you don't pitch to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I do think, I don't know whether this is like a cultural thing or maybe like a period of time thing, but I feel like there's this mentality that you do good work, like you just do really good work, and eventually someone will notice. And
Yeah.
I think in the past that probably was true because like we didn't have social media, so we weren't seeing everybody's work at scale, so
Yeah.
it was easier for the people that were really good to almost like rise up to the top and be seen. Whereas I feel like now, because everyone is sharing, well, not everyone, but so many people are sharing their work online, like it's harder for people to find you. And so I feel like you have to go and stand in front of them, and that's where the rejection challenge has been really helpful, because it's change that mentality I had of like just sitting, just quietly getting on with my work and hoping that one day someone would notice, to trying to be a bit more like bold and, yeah, ask for what I want, basically.
Yeah. And what was it that led you to fearlessly do that and start pitching yourself?
So it was actually podcast related. So I was at Adobe Max and I met Chris Doe,
Mm.
and I think I bought his book and I tagged him on Instagram and he replied. I've since found out that the reply was a bot, but at the time I thought it was him. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my goodness, he's replied. If I reply back, he'll probably see it.
Yeah.
And so I asked him if he'd be on the podcast, and he said no, basically. And so I felt it was interesting. It was interesting to me how I felt about it, given that no one else knew. Like no one else knew that I'd asked him,
Yeah.
or I think I told like one of my friends, but like it wasn't like it was a public thing. But I still felt really embarrassed about it, and I felt like, oh, this feels rubbish that I asked him and he said no.
Yeah.
And I remember catching myself thinking, I'm not going to do that again because it doesn't feel good. And I think that was when I suddenly realized hang on a second, like this fear of getting rejected or this desire to avoid those feelings is probably holding me back in all different areas of my business that I hadn't even realized. And
Yeah.
so then a friend of mine had done a similar challenge. She called it, this is so much nicer, she called it the no thank you challenge. It's like, so that's so
Mm.
British, so polite. It's like the no thank you challenge. Her name's Katie Chappell and she's an amazing illustrator.
Mm.
And yeah,
Is
so
it
I
Katie Draws on
yeah,
Instagram?
Katie draws on Instagram. She's a live illustrator, absolutely incredible what she does. And so yeah, I basically set myself this challenge to get to get 100 rejections in 6 months.
Mm.
And I completely failed. I still haven't got there. But what was really fun is that I shared, obviously, because everything is content, I shared the process online and people just really loved it. And also, like, they all started doing it as well and messaging me being like, I just pitched for this thing and I got
Yeah.
it. And, all these amazing things were happening. And it was just so cool to hear everybody else's stories of not being rejected when they thought they would be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's awesome. I was probably one of the people who messaged. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do it.
Yes,
You
love
inspired me. I'm scared 100%, but I'm still gonna do it. That's awesome. So how has that affected your business? I know with what you just said, I think it brought in community and people together in terms of like, hey, I'm gonna do this too. And I guess it just brings that sense of I'm not in this alone.
it. Mm.
But how has that affected your business? And do you have a count of how many pitches you've made so far?
Oh, yes. Hang on. Let me just get it up so I can tell you actual figures, but I do have a count. Um, so, how has it impacted my business? The thing that's really hard about it is I think it's hard. Like, I did a good job of tracking all the rejections, but not necessarily the sort of monetary
Yeah.
um like values. Like, it definitely has brought me in clients and made me money. I think the biggest thing is that it's increased my visibility. So, like, I just got out there and was like pitching to be on other people's podcasts. So, like, a really nice full circle story was I actually pitched to Chris Doe to be on his podcast to talk about his rejection and the impact it had on me. And then I was on his podcast and he has like 2.5 million YouTube subscribers. So that is just
Mhm.
wild to me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I think visibility, confidence, I recover much quicker now if I get rejected. So like, I don't think the feelings will ever go where it sort of stings a bit. And I don't
Yeah.
think that was ever really my goal. It was more just like, okay, but then how do I deal, how do I respond after that's happened? So
Yeah.
yeah, I recover much quicker. Yeah, and I think it's just increased my confidence, like showing up in that way, sharing those stories. It's grown my audience. Like, I think, well, so the thing that was really interesting to me is that when I started doing it, more people started approaching me with opportunities. So they
Mm.
weren't things that I pitched for. And some of them were even things that I had had on my list to pitch for, but they asked me before I got to them. And I think there is something in that. Like, people can sense like how you're showing up online. And if you're showing
Mm.
up like more confidently and you're more visible, you're like more top of mind for them, then they
Yeah.
start asking you for things. So that was a really interesting thing that I hadn't expected, that actually it would just lead to more opportunities in general, not just ones that I'd pitched for. But I've just had a look and I've pitched for 52 things. So I'm still
Okay.
not even, and then like about, I think just over half of those are rejections.
Hmm.
So I'm still way off 100
That's,
rejections.
yeah, that is still a very good percentage though. Like
Yeah, like,
having 50% success rate is
yeah,
very
it's
high.
way higher than I
Yeah.
expected. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. So when we talk about top of mind and getting sort of no thank you response, do you follow up with those people? Do you ever pitch yourself again? How does that journey look like?
Yes. So this is one of the things that I've been working on, is trying to be better at following up.
Yeah,
And yeah, I follow up now. I kind
yeah,
of have like a bit of a rule in my head. I mean, I definitely do it based on how I feel about each opportunity, and it depends
mm,
how much I want it and like who the person is or what the opportunity is. But I
yeah,
kind of have a rule in my head that I'll follow up twice, and then if I don't hear anything, then I'll just count as a rejection. One of the interesting things I did learn was that sometimes I marked something off as a rejection and then I heard back from them like 6 months later and then I had to change it to an acceptance. So that was quite cool. So sometimes people just take a really long time to get back to you.
Yeah.
I think from me, so one of the things that's been interesting is I also receive pitches from people to be on my podcast, and that's
Mhm.
actually taught me a lot in
Yeah.
terms of what I like about how I like to be pitched to. And
Yeah.
sometimes I do really appreciate a follow up because sometimes it's just that my inbox got really overwhelming, so I just decided not to look at it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And so actually them following up helps me out. And so then that helped me change my mindset on following up with people, and just like not seeing it as being annoying, but just seeing
Yeah.
it as being like helpful. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
try and follow up more.
Yeah, every time just going back and doing the cold emailing sort of, but yeah, I think it's also important. So how about zooming out of the picture just to take a quick look at not just from the screen but also on your business. How do you sort of step back and look at the big picture, being so close to the business?
Yeah, that is really hard. I mean, I try and like put like at all these sort of usual points of the year, so like in January, in
Yeah.
September, like I try
Yeah.
and take a bit of time out to think bigger picture.
Hmm.
um I think for me, having close business friends who understand what you do but aren't necessarily doing the exact same thing has been really helpful. So
Yeah.
I've got like a few friends that I talk to a lot about my business, and just getting, like they know my brand and my business so well, like getting their perspective from the outside is really helpful.
Hmm.
um yeah, it is hard though. I definitely
Yeah.
find it hard because I'm just like, yeah, in it all the time. So it is
Yeah.
hard to sort of to get that bigger picture look on it.
Yeah, working in the business, working versus working on the business. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a good balance we all need to find, because there's like always this admin task that is just
Yeah.
always there sitting. And
Yeah.
you have to do it. It's the end of your taxes, you have to get to
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So what does working with small businesses look like in the beginning? How does that journey look like, and how do you flip the switch for them and how they show up online?
I think I guess one of the other reasons that I love working with small businesses is because I'm a small business as well. And I totally remember the days when I had a website that I hated. I hadn't spent time on my branding. And I
Mhm.
basically just like wouldn't tell anyone about my business because I was just like, I do not want anyone going to my website because it's like a total
Yep.
mess. And
Yep.
I think that just made me realize, like the power of branding, and how if it's right and it reflects you well,
Mm.
in the same way that the rejection challenge empowered me to show up in a far more confident way online, I think if your business looks how you want it to look, then it helps you show up way more confidently. The way that I would describe it is like with clothes, where you just wear this amazing outfit and it just
Yeah.
makes you feel so good, and almost
Look.
like it almost changes the way you walk, like the way you just are in the world. And I think if you think of your branding like your outfit, like your clothes for your business, if they're right, they fit well, they look good on you, you like it, like that's really important that you feel good at it, then I think it shows how you it changes like how you show up online in a way that's like really positive for your business. And I
Yeah.
think, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just saying the look good, feel good aspect of being a small business online. That's so interesting.
Mm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think like one of the things that I love about small businesses is that there's all these things that they can do that like huge corporate companies are literally paying hundreds of £1,000s for
Hmm.
that, but they just get to do it because they're a small business. Like they can be really agile, they can make decisions and pivot really quickly. They
Yep.
can, be really authentic because it's just them. Like big brands are paying individuals to be like a face of their brand because they know that people want to connect with people. Well, as a small business owner, like, you've got that, you can be the face of your brand. And I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an overall just getting past that hurdle of thinking in your brain what is like what's stopping you
Mm,
aspect.
yeah,
Like, don't be nervous about showing up online because what's the worst that could happen?
yeah,
Yeah, I guess there's something for everyone in there. But let's talk branding. You do branding, do you also do websites?
yeah. In Squarespace.
Okay, you do branding, you do websites, you do GIFs or GIF, you do the podcast. There's so many things. What makes something like a yes project for you? Why? When do you say yes to people?
Oh, that's yeah, great question. I think for me, it's a combination of like the person, like clicking with the person and getting on with them really well, and
Yeah,
also like what their business is. Like that's when I get really excited when when they're doing something that I really believe in or that I find really exciting. It's usually when I am the target audience of their business. That's when I get really excited because I'm like, yes, I totally get like why people need this and why you're offering it. And actually, I've been really lucky. Like, so often, I am the target audience of my clients' businesses. And I'm just like, and then I'll be there designing, and I'm like, yep, this is what I need. This is what I need in my life. But what I really like is that I haven't niched at all by industry. So I get to like work with a whole variety of different people. So, like, it could be a photographer or a nutritionist or like I did work for someone who bakes cookies, like a baker. Like it's
mhm,
really varied, which I really enjoy.
yeah. So when you're the target audience, how does that bring you clarity in the design process when things get messy? I know you're the kind of person who designs something and then takes a step back and doesn't come to it for 2 weeks and then just gets a bunch of ideas. So how does that process look like for you?
Oh yeah. Well, I've been thinking about this I've been realizing recently that I need lots of like mulling over time. So I'll
Hmm.
start thinking of initial ideas, but then I almost like have to walk away from the project for yeah, like you said, a couple of weeks and just like let it all percolate in my mind, and then
Yeah.
I'll come and sort of start to get it down on paper or on the screen. Um, but I think being the target audience just gives me a perspective of like what will appeal to people, like how to draw in the right person. So if I'm the sort of person they're going for, then I've got some insight of like how to draw those people in. So I
Yeah.
think that's helpful. um but yeah, I think, I mean, it varies. I don't know about if you feel the same, but like with my creative process, I definitely have like, there's that meme where it's like, oh, this is amazing. I love this project. And then it's like, oh, this isn't looking great. Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever designed. And then it starts to come back up, and then you're like, oh, maybe this is okay. And then you're like, this is amazing. Like, I feel like I have to ride that roller coaster every single time. And me
Yeah.
and a friend of mine, she's a painter,
Hmm.
but we've shared notes on the creative process, and it's pretty similar either way. Like we both end up in this like really awful, we call it like the dark night of the soul, where you're just like, this is all terrible, and like you're like, I've ruined it all. And
Yeah.
now it doesn't freak me out because I've just accepted that it's part of the process. And it's so funny, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking this is the same with the like rejection challenge. Like rejection doesn't freak me out anymore because I'm like, oh, this is just part of the process. Like this is to be
Yeah.
expected. And I think it doesn't mean that you don't have to go through it, and it doesn't mean that it's not hard, but it just means it's less scary because it's expected.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is similar for me, but I tend to work in capsules of time.
Okay.
So I work on multiple projects in the same day and then come back to it, which kind of gives my brain a little refresh.
Yeah,
And
nice.
with the podcast branding that I recently did for my podcast, I hated it. I hated it. The first week, I hated it. I came up with 20 different ideas and I was like, you know what? This is terrible. I'm not going to do this. I don't know how this is going to
Cancel the
show up.
podcast.
Cancel everything. And then last Friday, I think I came up with something again, and I was like, you know what? This actually isn't bad. The brand language looks great. Let me refine this. I went to a cafe, kind of gave myself a change of pace, and I was
Nice.
like, this is great. Let me make some patterns, and just like riding that wave and embracing that it's gonna happen every time. is important. Yeah, that's very well said.
Mhm.
Um, so how does going back to the audience kind of scenario where we're talking about target audience, when you create content online, how do you ensure that it's more community focused or more audience focused? What's your target audience? What does that space look like?
Oh, this is such a hard one. I think one of the things that I've thought about a lot, so there's lots of designers out there who create
Mm,
content for designers, and it does really well, and they grow really big audiences.
mm,
I have always been reluctant to do that because designers aren't my target audience. So I've always lent towards creating content that is inspiring and encouraging for small business owners. So that does attract designers as well because they're usually small business owners themselves.
right.
But like they're less my target audience. But but again, like I just like to do a bit of all of it. And I
Mm,
and I think with content creation, if you want to be able to keep it up and market yourself in that way, it
yeah.
almost has to be like 50% what you enjoy and what you want to do, and 50% what your audience needs and what's helpful for them. So I just try and make sure that I have a balance. Like sometimes I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make this video because it'll be really helpful for people. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I'm going to make this silly video because it's going to amuse me and I like it. And
Yeah.
that's like, there's no strategy behind it. It's just,
Yeah.
I want to do this and I think it'll be fun.
I mean, I guess when I kind of look back, or step back from that, what you just said, I think there is strategy behind it because you're still showing off your
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, there is. And also, like, the strategy behind it is to be able to create content sustainably and
yeah,
consistently. I need to enjoy it. So there has
yeah,
to be that element of it.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it is hard working out, like who it is that you're talking to when you create your content. And I think for me, because I am resistant to niching, or
Yeah.
like I'm resistant to just doing one thing,
Mm.
I think that can make it a little bit more confusing. Like, I don't think I talk about branding in my content anywhere as much as I should be doing.
Mm.
And I just
Yeah.
end up talking about all sorts of different things. So,
This is making me reflect on my own ways of how I show up online. I feel like I never show any of my work on Instagram. And
yeah.
while I share reels and the how-to tutorials, that's one of my content pillars, I never actually show the work. So I
Mm,
feel like showing up online kind of also creates this kind of pressure of what things I should showcase.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's food for thought.
Yeah.
So do you work from home or do you work from a co-working space?
I
And
work,
what? Go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, yeah, I work from home. I
What?
have thought about co-working space, but I
Yeah,
just I just like being able to like nip downstairs to the kitchen.
yeah,
or just like going to have a nap if I need to. Do you know what I mean? I like the
yeah,
flexibility of just,
yeah.
I mean, there's hard aspects to that because I
Mm,
find it really hard to switch off, and it's really easy to work in the evenings because all of my stuff is just upstairs and I could just go and, do a bit more.
yeah.
So I think from that perspective it's quite tricky. But yeah, I have thought about it, and I think working from home works better for me. But like you talked about how you went to a cafe. Like, I do like to have a change of scenery every now and then.
Mm,
It just depends what type of work I'm doing,
yeah,
as to whether a cafe will work for me or not.
yeah, yeah. No NDA calls outside. You
Yeah,
can do
yeah, 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 exactly.
that. So we talked a lot about branding. I'm curious, what are your thoughts about rebranding? And do you take on any clients that want rebrands? How does that work in your business model?
Oh, that's a good question. I think often quite a lot of my clients,
Yeah.
it is a rebrand. What's happened is that they've created the branding themselves just to get
Hmm.
themselves started, and then they get to a point in their business where they're ready to invest, and then they'll come to me. And so I would consider that a rebrand
Mm.
because they already, it's not I don't tend to work with like completely new businesses.
Yeah.
I tend to work with businesses that have been going a little while and now they want to level up. I actually my opinion on this, and this is very small business specific, right? But I actually think a lot of the time it's better for them to create something themselves at the start and just get going and then invest in branding down the line, because I feel like it takes you a few years to work out exactly what sort of business you want to be. Like you need to do the doing for a while so
Yeah.
that you can really work out, okay, well, what are your values? Who is it that you're trying to, sometimes your target audience changes slightly.
Yeah.
I've seen businesses where they've started selling off to one sort of group of people, and then it turns out actually it's a whole other group of people that's really interested in what they're doing, and
Mhm.
so they switch things up. And so I think sometimes it's better to DIY it, which seems like the wrong advice to come from a designer. But I think for that specific group of like businesses, I think that sometimes that is the right way to go. So yeah, usually I am doing rebrands, and it's when they've got to the point where like they're not feeling as confident anymore, or like their business is growing and actually like their branding is holding them back, or it doesn't reflect them
Yeah.
well, all those sort of reasons, and then it's time for them to do something different.
That I actually agree with that, because I feel like even running my own business, it's taken me years to kind of realize the actual tone of
Yeah.
voice and the people that I
Mm.
want to talk to.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree, even as a designer. I agree with that. This might be a hot take for some of the people out there, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's important to actually be in the business for a while and know how it's working and how people are resonating with your ideas and your
Yeah.
impact, to finally figure out what your brand values are. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So when working with small business, how much of the design process looks like what looks good versus what feels good?
Ooh, great question. I think I have quite like a collaborative approach. So I
Mm,
do like to get their input a lot, because
yeah,
ultimately, like, I want them to feel really, like, I want, yeah, like, I'm going to give them my advice and I'm going to tell them what I think, but also, like, I want them to feel really good about what's created and for it to feel like them, because usually it's just them in the business. So, like, they need to feel like it really reflects them well. So I'm
yeah,
definitely like very collaborative. I am definitely not. You know how this might be this might be a hot take.
I love it.
I feel like there's a lot of um design trends that are very aesthetic but not particularly functional. So
Mhm.
like there's loads of things that really wind me up, mainly because they're really bad from an accessibility point of view, which I think is really important as
Yeah,
a designer to consider. And I do think, it's always been like this, even, like 20, 30 years ago, there's been that whole issue of like, um, form over function, I guess, or, like style over substance. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it might look pretty, but if no one can read it, like that is not like functional
exactly.
design. And
Yeah.
design's all supposed to be about communicating as clearly as and effectively as possible.
Mm.
So like I'm not really into those sort of like aesthetic trends. I think some of them can be fun, but like, yeah, so basically there's loads, like there's loads of people choosing fonts that are like so fine you can barely see them. There's loads of people like using beige and white as their color palette, and the
Yeah,
contrast is not strong enough. I mean, another one, this is a design one,
yeah,
that absolutely winds me up, is people centering large amounts of text. So if I get emails and it's all centered, like I can almost like hear my brain just like stuttering and just being like, nah, this is too hard. And then the thing that is like sad about it is I could be their target audience for that
Mhm.
email, but I'm just not reading it because it's too hard for my brain,
Yeah.
and it's just like a easy fix, like just left align it. Um so I
Yeah,
think
I
uh,
agree. I think most people do that with newsletters.
yes, so
Like,
many people,
wow.
I know, and I do understand, I do get it, right? It's because visually it's
Yeah.
more pleasing because it's balanced, like
Yeah.
it's symmetrical, but
Mm.
yeah, it's so hard to read. So I
Yeah.
think it has to feel good. I don't know if this is
Mm.
answering your question at all. It has to
It
feel
is.
good,
Yeah.
but it also has to actually work. You know, like if
Mhm.
people can't read it, then it's a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I have been there, felt that newsletter thing so many times. Like
Yeah.
just the rage of things inside me. I think it's also not a lot of. I think not a lot of non-designers would understand. But
Yeah.
when I go to a restaurant and I look at the menu and it's just bad fonts, it just lights a fire in me, and I want to change it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. That's good. It inspires you to make the world's a
yeah.
better place one menu at a
Yeah,
time.
I actually asked a restaurant one time I was having dinner at, and I was like, you know what? Here's my card if you need a designer in the future. I'm here.
Nice.
I'm
Well
here to
done.
help you out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, since we're talking hot takes, what's time for another hot take? What's something that people think is good design, but you completely disagree with?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but you know what really winds me up is the Pantone color of the year. I'm just like, some random person somewhere has picked some random color, and then everyone's doing posts being like, oh, this is the color of the year. I can't wait to use it in my projects. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you can't wait to use it in your projects? You don't need some person to pick this color for you to now be allowed to use it in your project.
Yeah.
So that one winds me up. I mean that's not particularly a hot take. I do think like one thing that is going to be interesting is, well, to bring up the AI topic, is like
Mhm.
how AI is going to start to be used, because I am
Yeah.
seeing businesses use it more and more, and I'm not sure it's having the intended impact that they expected.
Mm.
Like I don't know. Well, I don't. This might send us off in a tangent, so feel free to rein me back in if it does. But one thing I've been thinking about recently is Instagram. Well, not just Instagram, social media trends,
Yeah.
because like there's ones that'll go around like massively, and some of them I really enjoy. But the problem with the trend is, unless you're one of the very first people to do it, by the
Mhm.
time you do it, it's so boring. Like I don't know if you've seen the one that's happening at the moment is getting ChatGPT to basically make a toy model of you in a
Yeah.
box with like the
Yeah.
things that you use.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was cool the first, like literally just the first time I saw it. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so bored of this. And so I think people do need to think about that. And that's not to say that I haven't ever done trends. You know, like if there's one that I really enjoy, you know, like I've done trends more probably for like videos. So like I don't know, there was a trend a couple of years ago where everyone was sharing snippets of their life in a Wes Anderson
I was
style.
gonna say
And
that.
I
Yeah.
actually loved that trend and I didn't
Yeah.
get bored of it. And so
Yeah.
maybe it's about personal taste. But yeah, I think often people think that if they do trending content, that is going to be really beneficial. This is not really design question, it's content question, but I think they think that'll be really beneficial for their business, and I don't always think it's as beneficial as people think it'll be.
Yeah. I guess it's more about who was there first rather than whether
Yeah,
you did it or not.
yeah.
That's interesting. So, what we touched a little bit on AI. What is your honest take on AI, on how it's impacting the design world at this moment?
I feel like if it is something that is assisting your creative process, so for example, I will forever be celebrating that I do not have to cut people out of their backgrounds
Hmm.
like point by point in Photoshop. Like the
Yeah.
fact that I can click a button and it's removing their background, like that is happy days, because that didn't feel like a creative job for me to do.
Hmm.
If it is replacing like creative work that you would have done or someone would have done, I find it really hard to get excited about that. Like I
Yeah.
just don't find that interest. Like I don't, like everyone at the moment is sharing, oh my goodness, look what incredible things ChatGPT 4 or whatever it is can do. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't find it impressive. I don't find it impressive that a computer can do that. Like,
Yeah.
I find it impressive if a human has spent hours doing that and I can't even wrap my head around how they did it. Like,
Yeah.
I find it really hard to get excited about it. And I just feel like it's going to be a bit like, there was a period, not so much now, but a couple of years ago, where everybody was using the same Canva templates to the point where you're like, that's a Canva template. I recognize, like I saw
Yeah.
it, I've recognized it, I've seen a million other people use it. And I
Yeah.
feel like now that's what's going to happen with like AI generated content. It's going to be like, yep, I've seen this a million times and I'm really, really bored.
Yeah.
But I'm not anti AI. Like when it comes to, like doing things more efficiently in your business, like helping with the tasks that are like really difficult. I mean, like AI, it's not like it hasn't been around for ages as
Yeah.
helping, like in loads of different ways. Um, like another one that I love, which I think is AI, is like when I'm like editing videos in Premiere Pro, I can just
Yeah.
click a button and it takes out all the pauses. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, I'm here for that. I'm
Yeah.
also here for AI repurposing my content. So if
Yep.
it's like like the original source is mine and is creative, and it's going to turn it into something new that I can use. So like I love
Yeah.
all those like like video clip editors. I mean, maybe the video editors aren't loving them.
Yeah, even
That's
in Riverside, there's a magic
yeah,
clip option
yeah,
where you
yeah.
can. Yeah, I love that.
So
Yeah,
things that like speed up parts of the creative process, and like often I don't use it as the AI has created it. So like with that clip generator,
yeah,
like it's helping me quicker get to the sections that I want, but I'll probably then go and edit it
yeah,
myself. So I
yeah,
think, yeah, that is where I sort of am landing at the moment. Like I get excited when it saves me time and is like doing the
mm,
jobs that are non-creative. If it's
yeah,
like doing actual like generative creative work, I find it hard to get excited about it.
yeah. When it takes the fun parts out of the
Yeah,
work, that's when it's not exciting. So
yeah.
I know you hate, or not hate is a strong word. You dislike creating brand guides.
Oh
So I guess
yes, no, I hate it. I hate it.
so when AI is gonna you put in a template and that's the template that you want to use every time and you feed in all the images like SVGs
Yeah,
at point and then it just like pumps out a brand guide which is like here's my
puts it in
information,
the
here's
template.
the do not use
Because that actually
and like
doesn't feel creative to me. Yeah, because it's a
exactly
template
yeah
that I do every time, and it's
yeah
it's like a formula almost. It's like having the right things in the right place. So I
yeah
currently outsource that to someone else
yeah
because it was causing a bottleneck in my business.
yeah
Because
it's just
I just
it's
didn't
just
want to do it.
yeah it's just one of those things. It's like production work which doesn't require anything creative per se. I mean
But
the layout does.
yeah, the layout
um
does. But the interesting thing is when I've mentioned this online, some designers love doing them. Like they actually really enjoy that process. Or like some designers do it as they go. So they love seeing it all like build up. And
yeah
I respect that. Like I think we all, like we all have different things, different parts of the process that we enjoy and we struggle with. But one
yeah
of the best decisions, I had a coaching call with someone and I was sort of talking about how, like this was slowing me down delivering my brands. And she was like, so hire someone to do it for you, but she was
mm,
like, and increase your prices by the amount you're paying that person to do it so that it's like net neutral. And I was
yeah
just like, oh, that is such good advice. And it was just like gave me the permission to be like, I don't want to do this thing, I'm going to get someone else to do it for me.
yeah no that's so awesome. I was actually on Threads the other day where I also saw someone talk about using AI and like the client actually asking them if the first iteration of logos was AI generated. And they were
No.
like, I'm unsure whether I should feel flattered or offended by this.
Yeah,
Has
I think I
has
would be
some
offended.
I would be offended too, but have any of your clients brought up AI or wanted you to use AI artwork in
No,
your process?
no,
Okay, okay.
never.
Yeah.
Um, the only sort of issue I have had
Mm,
is when a brand wanted me to like promote an AI feature that like I just wouldn't. It wasn't necessarily like that there was anything wrong with it, but I just wouldn't use it, and so it just didn't feel authentic. So I basically pushed back and said, no, because
Yeah.
like it just didn't feel right to me to promote something that I just know that I would never use.
Mhm.
But no, I haven't. No, none of my clients. I don't think I've ever mentioned it, even.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great thing. I think even working with small businesses, it's more so going back to the human side of things
Yeah,
rather than a machine do it,
yeah.
which yeah, brings us I think to a close. Is there a question that you think people should ask you more?
Oh, that's a great question. A question people should ask me more. More people have been asking me about public speaking recently, which I'm enjoying. Like, I had a call with someone earlier and she asked me if I'd always enjoyed public speaking or whether it was something that I had to like practice, which I thought was a great question. So maybe more questions about public speaking.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. That's like
No, no.
first thing that springs to mind.
That's awesome because I know you're doing a few talks in the near future too.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Maybe
So
ask me that question again after I've done the talks. I might have
yeah.
changed. I might have changed my answer. I might be like, I'm never doing public speaking ever again.
No, just to give this episode a close, thank you so much for being here. I have a set of rapid fire questions that I
Okay.
prepared.
Yeah.
We'll do that and we'll talk about where can people find you on the internet. But what is the one design rule that you love breaking?
Ooh. Anika, you've got such good
This is
questions.
rapid fire, Liz.
Oh,
Talk shop.
this is rapid
Come
fire. Oh,
on.
sorry, I didn't realize. I thought this was a pre-rapid
No.
fire question. Oh, okay. I think sometimes I like breaking the grid. I don't follow the grid.
Okay, okay. What's one tool you're obsessed with right now?
The pattern maker in Adobe Illustrator.
Okay, and something that has made you feel like, yep, I'm on the right track.
So I did this thing in InDesign the other day that like blew my mind, where I basically used the data merge and InDesign created a different QR code on every page.
Yep. Okay. Mind blowing.
Mind
That's
blown. I was like, oh yeah, I am on the right track. InDesign is the absolute goat.
got it. That was awesome. Thank you so much, Liz, for being here and joining us today on the Ableheads podcast. Where can people find you?
If my website is lizmosley.net, my podcast is buildingyourbrand.net, and I'm at Liz M. Mosley on social media.
Well, awesome. Everything will be in the show notes, and we will see you another time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, this was such a good chat with Liz, and I loved how she was so candid with her responses and showing us a little bit insight behind the scenes. If you're listening and want to dive deeper into Liz's world, make sure to head on to her website to find out more. And I'll catch you all next time on Ableheads. Don't forget to rate, share, and listen to it everywhere you get your podcasts, and I'll see you in the next one.